Baseball is America. I mean, if you want to be associated with what's truly American and you're a politician, you better get close to baseball.
That was Texas Rangers managing general partner George W. Bush. An interview with C-SPAN, Arlington Stadium, Arlington, Texas. It was June 11th, 1991. 3 years later, George W. Bush was elected Texas governor, and 6 years after that, he was elected president. We're hearing George Bush's thoughts on baseball again for this podcast because it's that wonderful time of year, time for the Major League Baseball postseason. And not just time for the playoffs and the World Series, but also time for politicians to talk about the playoffs and the World Series. In particular, presidents and presidential candidates. For this episode of C-SPAN's The Weekly, we've selected 8 memorable moments when the baseball season interacted with presidents and presidential candidates. We'll play clips for each moment and then talk about them with a very special guest. Joining us in the C-SPAN radio studios, it's Carl Cannon. He's Washington Bureau Chief of Real Clear Politics and Executive Editor of Real Clear Media Group. Carl Cannon has the 2 requisite requirements for this particular podcast. He's a presidential historian, and he's a baseball fanatic. Carl will give us both the political history and the baseball history surrounding each memorable moment. We begin with what is probably the most memorable moment of them all. October 30th, 2001, Yankee Stadium. It's Game 3 of the World Series, the Arizona Diamondbacks versus the New York Yankees. And it's a month and a half since the terror attacks of 9/11. Who throws out the opening pitch? President George W. Bush.
And please welcome the President of the United States. President has ever visited Yankee Stadium during the World Series. This was the year.
And here's what the C-SPAN audience heard the next day.
The New York Post has President Bush last night at the World Series at Yankee Stadium. He, by the way, is the first president since Dwight Eisenhower to throw out a pitch for the World Series. The New York Post has it as first fan. He was wearing a New York City Fire Department jacket at Yankee Stadium. Also a similar story, front page of the New York Daily News, and the president front page of the New York Times.
All right, Carl Cannon, welcome to C-SPAN Radio Podcast The Weekly. Take us back to October 30th, 2001.
Well, Howard, modern presidents often hear a smattering of boos when they go to a Major League ballpark. That's just the way it is these days. But 6 weeks after 9/11, George W. Bush was not going to hear boos unless he bounced the pitch. It's New York, after all. And Derek Jeter warned him of that. Bush later told me he was wearing a bulletproof vest, so he was a little worried. He'd been a pitcher in high school, and he pitched on the freshman team at Yale. But he warmed up and he practiced at the White House, and then he warmed up with Jeter. But Jeter said, this is New York. They'll boo you. You got to throw it over the plate. And just before he left to go out to the mound, Jeter gave that universal attaboy that men have been giving each other since time immemorial. He said, "Don't screw up." Of course, he didn't use the word screw. He used an Anglo-Saxon verb, but this is C-SPAN, so I cleaned it up a little bit. But after the attacks of 9/11, Bush had encouraged Americans to go to baseball games and to shop and to go on vacation, to go to national parks. He was, 9/11 was compared to Pearl Harbor, but it was an attack on the United States when we had a service economy. And the way Bush wanted to get people to Americans to respond was to go about their daily lives. And like Franklin Roosevelt, he decided to keep baseball alive. And, Howard, I'm pretty sure of this. The first president to throw out the ceremonial ball from the mound was Bush's father, George H.W. Bush, who had been a baseball star in college. They'd both gone to Yale, but Bush's father had played 3 years on the varsity, been captain of the team. And there's this iconic photograph, I'm sure you've seen it, of George H.W. Bush, Poppy Bush, with Babe Ruth in 1948. He's the captain of the Yale team, and it's one of Babe Ruth's last public appearances. But Poppy wanted to throw from the mound. It was in 1989. I think it was in Baltimore at the Oriole game. And before then, presidents had sat in a box, and thrown it a few feet. Any president, Eisenhower, Kennedy, no matter how good athletes they were. But Poppy threw from the mound. So W, of course, got to throw from the mound. And so back to W, he didn't screw it up that night. And most baseball fans, no matter whether they voted for him or not, were happy for him. This is a quote from Billy Crystal. He said, "I was there that night. And when he threw that strike, that moment breathed life into our slow recovery."
Now, it's kind of, as you mentioned, both Bushes were from baseball. So just the coincidence of the two worlds of 9/11, this horrible incident, and it just so happens we have a president with a baseball pedigree, a managing general partner of the Texas Rangers. Sure. That seems so. What a coincidence that would happen. Those two worlds would come together.
Oh, it was providential.
Providential. Yeah. Well, I set this up as the biggest moment of presidents and World Series, and we have 7 other clips to play. But would you agree that that is a monumental moment in the history of presidents and World Series and the postseason playoffs?
Oh, absolutely. And it was in New York. Now, how was that planned? Well, the Yankees had to get there. They had to win it. But the attacks, the worst of the attacks had happened in New York. Bush had gone to New York as president the day after 9/11, and he had vowed to find the people who did this and make them and bring them to justice. And New Yorkers, people don't always like New York. People aren't all Yankee fans. We can talk a little later. I was raised in a family of, let's just say, non-Yankee fans. I don't want to use the H word. I don't want to say Yankee haters in this context. But we were all Yankee fans in that moment. I don't mean we wanted the Diamondbacks to lose, but we wanted New York to come back. And the New Yorkers were there, the fans, and they were telling us, we are going to come back. And Bush was the right man at the right moment.
And of course, the Diamondbacks lost. I'm sorry, the Diamondbacks won the World Series that year over the Yankees.
Yeah, but what do we say in baseball? That seems anticlimactic. Howard, you shouldn't have even brought that up.
It's hard to bring it down on a number one moment.
But what do you say in baseball when a guy comes up? You want the right hitter up. Right guy, right spot. That was Bush.
All right, moment 2. Now the second moment, the 1996 presidential election. Republican Senator Bob Dole challenging Democratic President Bill Clinton. It's October 16th, 1996. The second debate between Bob Dole and Bill Clinton, and the 6th game of the National League Championship Series between the Atlanta Braves and the St. Louis Cardinals. Here's how the debate starts.
We begin now with Senator Dole and his opening statement. Senator Dole.
Thank you very much, Jim. Let me first give you a sports update. The Braves won, Cardinals nothing. Early on.
Okay, Carl, I actually put this clip in here. It's actually, believe it or not, one of my favorite World Series politics clips or playoffs, because how often do you have a president or candidate giving a score to open a presidential debate?
Well, some people thought at the time it was a very subtle dig by Bob Dole, who was famously caustic, because Bill Clinton had been raised as a St. Louis Cardinals fan. But the Cardinals were winning. So I think he intended to do it. But the other way to look at that, and you look at it at face value, was Dole was a little bored by that debate, and so were the American people. In truth, and Dole knew this, he'd been in politics all his life, that election wasn't really much in doubt. The networks had cut back their coverage. That debate got the lowest ratings of any presidential debate to that point, and the baseball ratings weren't high either. It was a kind of a passing of the torch. Pro football had long eclipsed baseball really as the national pastime by 1996. But baseball was making a comeback, and it was making a comeback. In 1994, Bill Clinton was just there was a baseball strike. Clinton tried to settle the strike, and as charming as he was, you had these greedy millionaires, the players, and greedy billionaires, the owners, and they couldn't see past their own nose. They didn't care about the national pastime. They didn't care about the implications of it. They just wanted their money, and Clinton was very frustrated. I was at the White House the night he met with the players, and he tried to get them to do it. But what happened? What happened was Cal Ripken almost single-handedly brought back baseball. He broke Lou Gehrig's record. You'll remember this in Camden Yards. And it was like Pulp Fiction. Cal hit a home run the night before he broke Gehrig's record. He hit a home run the night he tied it, and he hit a home run the night he broke it. And Clinton was there, and so was Al Gore. And I was on pool duty, and I spent some time with Clinton that night. I was covering the White House for the Baltimore Sun. And Clinton was really into it, and so was Gore. The Secret Service does not like them to be in the same confined space like that, but Gore wouldn't hear of it. He said, I'm going. And they went in the locker room. They were with Cal. Clinton asked me, he said, tell me a baseball story, like that he can tell the networks. So I told him some involved story that he couldn't possibly tell the networks because it had too many cuss words in it. But then we're walking to his box, and Clinton grabs him by the arm, and he says, Carl, DiMaggio's here. That was the context by 1996. Baseball was coming back, and men of their generation, Doles and Clinton, were really excited about that.
We mentioned Providence for the first clip. I didn't even know. It didn't occur to me until now that those worlds colliding, Cal Ripken, Bill Clinton, and a young Carl Cannon is then working with the Baltimore Sun, covering the White House. Those are all a lot of worlds colliding in that one.
Well, I was playing hardball around here in these industrial leagues. I was on a couple of teams, and Clinton didn't seem to care much about that, but Bush did when he got in the White House. He started calling me Johnny Damon because I was wearing my hair long and ribbing me. You know how he could tease you. But it was baseball seemed to be more associated with the White House than it has the last 5 years, I would say.
Yeah. Now, moment 3, September 26, 2007, a week before the playoffs begin, and a Democratic presidential primary debate is held in Dartmouth, New Hampshire. Debate moderators are Allison King of the New England Cable News and Tim Russert of NBC News Meet the Press.
I want to thank you all for your answers this evening. I want to ask Allison King for one more question. This, after all, is New Hampshire. She wants to ask you about baseball.
For many here in New England, the answer to this next question may be the most important one you answer tonight. Red Sox or Yankees? Governor Richardson. You start.
What is it now, Bill? Come on. Red Sox, because Manny Ramirez is back. The Red Sox will win the pennant, and they will win the World Series.
Senator Clinton.
I've got to take exception to this. Cleveland Indians won the Central Division, 92 victories. They're going to the World Series. Hi, Mom.
Senator Clinton, where are you on this? Red Sox or Yankees?
Well, I hate to say it in front of this New Hampshire crowd. I'm a Yankees fan, have been for a long, long time.
Senator Clinton, what about a World Series Yankees and Cubs?
Well, I've worried about that because I think given the Cubs record, which of course I hope it happens, but it could very well be a sign of the coming apocalypse were that to ever occur. It would be so out of history that you'd have the Cubs versus the Yankees. Then I'd be really in trouble. But
who would you be for?
Well, I would probably have to alternate sides.
Spoken like a true sports fan. Senator Gravel, Yankees, Red Sox.
I'm from New England. I was born in Massachusetts. You have to ask that question.
Edwards.
Red Sox.
Obama.
Sox, but the wrong color. I'm a White Sox fan all the way.
Dodd.
Sox, and tomorrow night you're going to be hosting a debate in Red Sox Nation.
Yeah, Biden.
Who's going to be the president of Red Sox Nation? We all want to tune into that one as well.
I was raised in Scranton, Pennsylvania by a grandfather. If you weren't a Yankees fan, you didn't eat. Yankees.
All right, Carl Cannon, have fun with that one.
Well, look, nobody, despite what she said, nobody votes for a president because they don't root for your baseball team. But Hillary got a lot of grief for that answer. And when Tim Russert said spoken like a true sports fan, he was being ironic. He meant spoken like a politician. But I give Hillary Clinton the benefit of the doubt on this. she said, I've been a Yankees fan for a long time. Well, none of us knew that. I didn't know she was a baseball fan. I assumed she grew up in Chicago. She was a Cubs fan, and she alluded to that. But, if New York Democrats didn't mind her switching, residents at switching states and moving there and being a carpetbagger as a senator, I don't think we should begrudge her rooting for the Yankees when she did so. It made sense. The answer that surprised me. Oh, and by the way, that Cleveland Indians answer was Dennis Kucinich, and they got the biggest laugh of the night. The answer that surprised me at the time was Joe Biden's, because I'm from Scranton. If you don't eat, Yankees fan, you don't eat. Well, that was a bit odd, and it was not only a non sequitur. When Joe Biden he moved to Delaware when he was 9 or 10. In either Delaware or Scranton, the closest team is the Philadelphia Phillies, and when he was a boy in Scranton, the Scranton team was the Scranton Red Sox was the farm team. So that just sort of came out of the blue to me. But look, his grandfather rooted for the Yankees. Good. My grandfather, my dad's side, rooted for the Brooklyn Dodgers. My siblings and I were raised in the San Francisco Bay Area as Giants fans. My dad now roots for the Dodgers because he's lived in Southern California for 25 years. My godson is from San Diego, he roots for the Padres. My kids, we moved back from California to Washington. I raised them. They were Orioles fans because there were no baseball here. And my grandkids are all Nats fans. So, people, George Wilp asked George Wilp if he's an Orioles fan or a Nats fan. We were having lunch. He said, at this point, I'm just a baseball fan. And so I give Hillary and Joe Biden the benefit of the doubt.
Oh, that's interesting. Okay, Joe Biden, benefit of the doubt. And I agree with you. I thought, in retrospect, the last 15, 20 years of politics, I thought it would be Phillies even without First Lady Jill Biden being a Phillies fan.
Oh, she's a Phillies nut.
Yeah, Phillies nut, yeah. So, all right. Moment 4, May 17th, 1987. Democratic Senator from Tennessee, Al Gore, is campaigning for president. He's speaking at a Democratic fundraiser in Manchester, New Hampshire. The year before, local favorite Boston Red Sox lost the World Series to the New York Mets.
Mike Dukakis is the one who leads in the polls here in New Hampshire. Talk about carrying around a heavy burden. To be the front runner and a Bill Buckner fan at the same time. Actually, I haven't gone to school in Boston 4 years. I am a big Red Sox fan, and it's taken me a long time to see the humor in the story about what Bill Buckner and the Red Sox have in common with Michael Jackson. They both wear a glove on one hand for no apparent reason.
Carl Cannon of Real Clear Politics, your thoughts on Al Gore and his Bill Buckner Michael Jackson joke?
Well, I'm charitable towards Hillary Clinton saying she's a Yankees fan and Joe Biden saying the same thing, even though I'm not a Yankees fan. But this here, I'm going to have to take issue with Howard. That's a classic cheap shot. And Gore's reading it. Somebody wrote the joke for him. It wasn't a long time. It was the year before. It was months before when Bill Buckner made the error.
What was it? Let's hear that. What was that?
I'll tell you about it. The Red Sox hadn't won a championship since 1918. They came in the 1986 World Series, huge underdogs to the Mets, who'd won 108 games. And, they got their ace on the staff, Roger Clemens. It's the 8th inning. They're ahead 3-2, and then things got really weird. And culminating in a ground ball from Mookie Betts basically going through Bill Buckner's wickets. And Buckner is blamed. He reviled all over the world, all over Red Sox Nation and the sports world, and that was unfair. Buckner was he was drafted in 1975 by the Dodgers directly out of Napa High School. He's a fleet-footed outfielder, 3-sport star. His speed was, he was a really fast runner. His speed was robbed forever in 1975. He slides in second base, shatters his ankle, but he loved baseball and he stayed in the game basically, on guts and guile as a hitter. And I mean, the guy, Boston's manager John McNamara, before the series said, Buck reminds me of a rodeo cowboy limping off to his pickup truck, throwing his saddle in the back and driving off to his next performance. The respect that he had for Buckner, I'm not getting far afield from presidents here, but I'll tie it up in a second. It was an admiration, but it was apparently misplaced because Buckner shouldn't have been in the game in the 8th inning. He was taken out all year when the Red Sox had a lead for a defensive replacement, and he had been 3 times already in that series. And then there was other players made errors. Calvin Coolidge couldn't find the plate. The catcher couldn't catch the ball. There was a series of mistakes in strategy by the manager.
Who was the manager?
John McNamara.
John McNamara was the manager.
He should have hit. He pinch hit Mike Greenwell. He should have hit Don Baylor. He made all these mistakes, and the last one was leaving Buckner in. So Buckner's a classic scapegoat, and I expected more from Gore, and I remember that. I was there when at that event, and I was disappointed in him. And the other thing is, there was a seventh game. And the Red Sox were ahead 3-0 that game and blew it. I mean, Buckner was one of the most unlikely scapegoats in baseball or American history. But there was a postscript to it. In 1990, at the age of 40, Buckner returned to Fenway for the last hurrah. And the Fenway faithful had not only forgiven Buckner, they had taken a look at how unfair they'd been. And he was greeted with a huge standing ovation in 2008 when he went back, 2007, and in 1990 he was asked to throw the pitch over the plate, and he threw a perfect strike, just like George W. Bush did 11 years later.
Perfect. All right. Now, moment 5. It's October 20th, 1992. Running against Bill Clinton, President George H.W. Bush participates in a televised town hall. The town hall is in Atlanta. 2 days earlier in Atlanta, they played Game 2 of the World Series, the Atlanta Braves versus the Toronto Blue Jays. And during the pregame ceremony, a Marine Corps color guard flew the Canadian flag upside down.
The economy, everyone identifies as a crucial issue. Does someone in the group want to ask an economic question of the president right now? Who has something they want to say? We do have, actually,
only because
in
we
fact,
got a
you've had
serious thing I want to say.
Go ahead, tell us your name and ask your question. We're calling on you because President mentions baseball. You've got your Braves T-shirt on. You get special treatment here today.
You don't have to ask baseball, but I just want something to use this program, Bill, if I can, to say something about the flag situation. Maybe I could do it before, and then you'd be unfettered by my trying to define what you should ask about. But here's the thing on the Canadian flag inadvertently flown upside down. If that had happened in Canada, and we'd have seen the United States flag flown upside down, every American would have been very, very upset. This was a mistake, and certainly nobody would ever do anything like that on purpose. And so what I wanted to use your program for is to say how badly I feel about it, how badly all the American people feel about it, how much we value our friendship with Canada. They are our strongest trading partner in the whole world, and we would do nothing to hurt the national pride of Canada. And so on behalf of all Americans, I simply wanted to apologize to the people of Canada and suggest we try to keep this from now on out of the marvelous baseball rivalry between Atlanta and Toronto.
Let me quickly,
and that's all I want to say.
How are you going to feel tonight? We are likely to see, they're planning on flying a lot of American flags upside down tonight in Toronto. How are you going to feel if you see that?
Well, I won't like it, because when you see the American flag flown upside down, as a person that served in the armed forces and fought for my country, I would find that inappropriate. I guess I'd have to say I understand the passions of the Canadians, but I would simply ask them to have the same respect for the American flag that all Americans have for their flag, and recognize, as I said last night, if you make a mistake, whatever it is, hey, say I made a mistake and get on about the nation's business.
All right.
But this one, I use this because the Prime Minister of Canada is a wonderful man, and he's a friend of the United States, and he gets pounded in Canada for his friendship. Don't mistake it, he's pro-Canadian. I expect he's rooting hard for Toronto. But I just wanted him to know how strongly Americans feel. End of discussion now.
After that town hall on October 20th, 1992, President Bush campaigns in Norcross, Georgia.
You cannot literally flip-flop on all these issues and lead. You cannot lead by misleading. You can't say one day, well, I think Toronto's great, but I'm for the Braves. You got to take a position. I am for the Braves, courageously.
All right, Carl Cannon, 1992.
Well, let's talk about the first clip first, because while this extended mea culpa that George H.W. Bush does about the Marine Guard inadvertently flying the Canadian flag upside down, it's a leaf. What do you care which side is up or down? The Canadians cared. Okay. But he went on and on about this, and I thought, I just couldn't help it. My mind started going to, if only Donald Trump had been asked this question. Why do they even have a flag? Why are they allowed to have baseball? I'm going to take the Toronto Blue Jays away from them. And why are they called the Toronto Blue Jays? They're not going to be called the Toronto Blue Jays anymore. They're going to be called the Toronto Americans. And why is Canada even a country? He would have had so much more fun with it than poor Bush did, because Poppy was too serious. The second clip, though, he uses that word, "I'm for the Braves," courageously. Now he's being ironic. He doesn't be that's courageous. He's being puckish there, but his physical bravery, his courage, is no laughing matter. It reminded me. Remember when I said his teammates at Yale called him Poppy? That was his nickname in college. It's because he was so much older than the other players. Why was he older than the other students? Because he'd gone to war. In 1941, spring of 1941, he's going to turn 18. It's also, he's graduating from Phillips Academy at Andover. His father, future U.S. Senator Prescott, well-connected Prescott Bush, arranges for the commencement speaker. Who's that going to be? The Secretary of War is going to Henry Stimson is going to speak to a high school class. Why? And then they realize as he's talking, he's addressing these young men and he's saying, it's going to be a long war. We're going to need officers. Go ahead and go to college. The whole reason Stimson's there is so Prescott Bush can dissuade George H.W., his oldest son, from going in the armed forces. They're walking out of the ceremony. Poppy's sort of walking behind. He says, did you hear what the secretary had to say? He said, nah, I'm going in. He'd already enlisted. And on his 18th birthday, became the youngest Navy pilot, combat aviator in the Pacific Theater. So he was shot down in a horrific thing that took the life of another man in the plane, another soldier. He was a harrowing rescue. So he was lucky that day. It wasn't as lucky in 1992. He lost that campaign, and the Braves lost the World Series. Right. To Toronto. So I'm sure to Donald Trump's chagrin.
Moment 6, October 28th, 1988. President Ronald Reagan is addressing the World Affairs Council in Los Angeles, California. A week earlier, an all-California World Series ended with the Los Angeles Dodgers beating the Oakland Athletics.
It's wonderful to be here in California, and I'm sure you all know I'm looking forward to getting up to the ranch this afternoon, and especially to that day in January when I permanently move from Air Force One. In fact, we've already started to bring a few items back with us from the White House. We came out here, and Nancy had me bringing several rolls of paper for lining shelves. And as you may have heard, the Dodgers came to the White House on Wednesday. They were awfully nice. They volunteered to bring a lamp back to Los Angeles.
Carl Cannon, Ronald Reagan, humor and baseball in that one.
When I first met Reagan, I was 16, and I lived in Sacramento, and I was high school, little jock. And Reagan he was the governor, and he held an event for the press who covered him and their families at his house. And my father was covering Reagan for the San Jose Mercury News, and I went there, and then suddenly he announced, sort of surprised, do the kids have any questions? I'm standing before the governor. I should have had a better question, but I didn't. So I asked him the question, the one that Hillary Clinton sort of wrestled with. So, you grew up a Cubs fan, but now you're a Dodger fan. When the Cubs play the Dodgers, who do you root for? He gave some anodyne answer. He was charmed by it, but I became curious even as a kid, and I looked at it, and it turns out if it wasn't for baseball, you and I might not even be talking about Ronald Reagan. He was the voice of the Cubs for a Des Moines radio station. He used to recreate the games because they couldn't travel with the team, and he was out covering. they sent him out to Los Angeles. Well, actually, to Catalina Island is where the Cubs did spring training, if you can imagine. But the Wrigley's owned the island. And while he was out there, Reagan decided, the voice of, I think WKO radio, I think's the name of it, in Des Moines, he decided to do a screen test. And he went down on his own. They had a day off, and he went down, took a boat off Catalina, and then went down to Los Angeles, did a screen test, got the role, and the rest is history.
Moment 7 is from October 21st, 1995. Game 1 of the World Series between the Atlanta Braves and the Cleveland Indians. A year earlier, 1994, there was no World Series because there was no baseball. The 1994 through 1995 Major League Baseball strike was the 8th and longest work stoppage in Major League Baseball history. Earlier that day, October 21st, 1995, before Game 1 of the World Series, President Clinton gives his weekly radio address.
The American renewal I want to talk to you about today is the renewal of our national pastime, the renewal of baseball. A year ago, for the first time in 90 years, we found ourselves without a World Series, and boy did we miss it. We missed those nail-biting extra inning nights. We missed a game that for so many of us is so much more than a game. Well, tonight, with the start of the World Series, baseball is back, and we couldn't be happier.
Carl Cannon of Real Clear Politics.
Well, you know, that I think that's somebody wrote that speech in the speechwriter's office, and Clinton delivered it like it was a written speech, but it was heartfelt. He was happy baseball was back. As I mentioned earlier, he was frustrated they couldn't have solved the baseball strike. He tried to do it, and when he and again, I also mentioned Cal Ripken had helped restore order to the universe, and Clinton was there. And the night that he was in Camden Yards, and Clinton did a really amazing job explaining why this thing of Ripken breaking this old record of Lou Gehrig's, the consecutive games played, 2,130 games, was such a thing because it was about the work ethic. And Clinton said he thought that even before the World Series, that the Orioles and Ripken, that we had gotten back something that we had lost as a country. And here's what he told me that night in the box. I got home late last night and watched a story on the local news about a Virginia bus driver who hasn't missed a day of work in 18 years. These are the kinds of people who make America great. And he said that he had talked to Ripken. He told Cal about this, and that Ripken had replied, "All I did was show up every day to do something I enjoy." And then Clinton told me, he said that he was really struck by that. He said, "I like people who enjoy what they do." And he was thinking of Cal Ripken, but I was thinking, Clinton was a happy warrior. I think he enjoyed what he did as well.
All right, 1994, Carl Cannon, there was a president, but there wasn't baseball. How did that affect Carl Cannon?
Well, I just went out and joined an extra team. Now, I had these little kids at home, so not everybody was thrilled with me in the Cannon household. But, I was covering the White House and playing, and it reminded me that, we watch these games, but we start out playing baseball as kids, and that it's the wonder of it, and the expectation, the anticipation that you don't know what's going to happen, and that maybe you'll be the GOAT, but maybe you'll be the hero, and that's what keeps us coming back, and it's what makes it so exciting.
Finally, it's memorable moment number 8, November 4th, 2019. President Donald Trump welcomes the World Series champions to the South Lawn of the White House. The Houston Astros lost that year's World Series to the Washington Nationals.
Throughout this season, the Nationals captured the hearts of baseball fans across the region and across the country. America fell in love with the Nats baseball. They just fell in love with Nats baseball. That's all they wanted to talk about. That and impeachment. I like Nats baseball much more. You worked every count, hustled for every base, you fought for every run and produced a comeback story for the ages. Never happened like what happened with the Nats, and that means a lot of good decisions were made. You reminded us all why baseball is truly America's pastime. So great for the sport.
All right, Carl Cannon, take us back to those great days, that great year 2019 when the Washington Nationals won the World Series.
Well, it really was a time, and And this happens in sports. It's why people love sports. It happened with the hockey team here when they won the Stanley Cup. It used to happen in the old days with the pro team when they were called the Redskins, when Joe Gibb was the coach, and you'd be on the subway going to RFK Stadium, and people would be singing like German soccer fans, or singing "Hail to the Redskins" on the train and rocking the stadium every time Roger Staubach got sacked. And we've lost some of that, and we lost a lot of it. Washington's become this huge city, not a small town anymore. People from all over the place. People much diffused audiences. Baseball doesn't hold the same place that it did, but neither do our affections. People can follow their hometown team on cable, whatever their sport. But in 2019, it was a special moment. This team was special. And, Trump was right about that. And, you had the Baby Shark, and you had Juan Soto and Anthony Rendon and all these great pitchers. And these people played the best baseball of their lives. They gave the MVP in the World Series to Steven Strasburg, but there were 5 guys they couldn't have won without. It was a true team effort. And it united the city in a way that we miss. And I got to give it to Trump. Yeah, he has a way of making things about himself, as he did in this clip, but he's also pretty funny. That was actually self-deprecating. But Donald Trump was not wrong. 2019 was special, and it'd be nice to do it again.
When, Carl, when are the Nationals going to return to the World Series?
When they get a new owner. It's a short answer, Howard.
Okay, all right. Okay. Okay. And now a bonus clip. And the bonus clip is Carl Cannon. He was on C-SPAN's Washington Journal, May 16th, 2019, the year the Nationals won the World Series. Carl is talking about a new healthcare poll, and he gets a call about unhealthy eating habits.
This caller strikes me to the core. I've just given up hot dogs myself for the reasons he cites. And the Nationals are playing a game this afternoon, and while he was talking, I was wincing, and I was saying, but he reminded me, okay, no hot dogs for you.
Who do the Nationals have this afternoon?
They play the Mets. It's the rubber match of a 3-game series.
All right, Carl Cannon, were you honest to the C-SPAN audience? Did you not eat a hot dog at that game?
Yes, but I'm laughing because in preparation, you can't. This is radio. You can't see me. I'm wearing a Nats hat here. I prepared for all these clips. I went back and made sure that I had the right quotes, that I remembered it right. Most of the stuff I did remember, but you check your notes. But I didn't look at that very last clip. So the hot dog thing caught me by surprise. Took me by surprise, and it kind of cut me to the quick because I didn't want to be late today, Howard, and I was working right up to the last minute. And so I gobbled down 2 hot dogs today before this interview.
My goodness. And here we're going to lay out celery sticks and carrots for you, too.
I'm too full. I wouldn't have been able to eat them.
Well, but you have gone to baseball since then, obviously, too, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And hot dogs at the stadium, or no? Or do you do the veggie burger at the stadium?
Come on.
Go where it is. C-SPAN, transparency, honesty.
Yeah, well, there's also discretion.
Yeah,
you don't have to say everything.
Everything, okay.
What was that? What was that banner they hung at Yankee Stadium on the night of the first clip that you played? USA, USA. Play ball.
Play ball. Play ball. All right. We're going to leave you there, but I am going to force. I just thought of this. We're running this a few days before the playoffs begin, so you have time to be right or wrong. But any predictions for this year's Major League Baseball playoffs and World Series, Carl Cannon?
I won't make a prediction, but I'll tell you, I'd like to see a team that has never won a World Series, or it's been an awfully long time. So I'd like to see the Padres surprise people. That'd be fun. And if George Condon is listening, and he covers the White House, he has my old job, covers the White House for National Journal. He's a friend of Howard's and mine. The Cleveland Indians. No, the Cleveland Guardians. That'd be nice to hang a banner there too.
As we depart, I have to say our producer Shannon Rice is a big Cleveland Guardians and before that Cleveland Indians fan. So what a great way to end this podcast by thanking a thumbs up from Shannon behind you and thanking the great Carl Cannon for joining us here on C-SPAN's podcast, The Weekly.
Thank you, Howard.